Jedi Fallen Order is an action-adventure game originally released in 2019. It's a Star Wars game set 5 years before Order 66 and follows Cal Kestis, a former Jedi Padawan struggling to hide against the Inquisition attempting to wipe out all Jedi. The setup falls quite neatly into existing canon by presenting characters that overall haven't appeared in the continuity thus far. However, falls foul of what I like to call prequel syndrome, in that the main character's objective, aside from surviving, is to resurrect the Jedi Order, and yet we know that he can't succeed as the Jedi Order isn't revived until Luke Skywalker. This means either a predictable ending, or one that live overwrites part of the existing continuity. This usually puts a dampener on things, but I honestly think with Star Wars, I'm so used to it, it just works. I really have to start by complimenting the visuals and the set pieces. I really like how the game provides a seriously limited number of planets to go through, yet the selection is so fantastically varied in terms of biome and atmosphere. Each planet has its own unique feel that really shines through with the world and sound design that visually I really have to provide the game with pretty much top marks. I also have to give massive props to the set pieces, which are not only epic and incredibly good fun on their own, but also don't fall into a common trap of feeling like the story has been created around them. This really increases the impact of the set pieces and really adds to the incredibly cinematic feel the game grips to throughout. I also have to say I feel that the mechanics of the game are explained really nicely within the narrative and are generally both visually and mechanically clever to bring together an extremely tight gameplay experience. The only place it's not perfect for me is that I do feel that the combat doesn't speak to my style of gameplay, and I did find myself getting just a little frustrated at times. This is likely a me issue though. I do, however, have to say that I think that some significant improvements could be made to make the map less confusing and easier to navigate. I feel Star Wars could learn something from Doom Eternal in this regard, as Doom Eternal has the single most useful map I've ever experienced. But overall, it's not the end of the world. I think that the Force Push, Force Pull and other abilities present themselves well, and once you are used to them, provide an easy to follow moveset that complements the otherwise monotonous combat. This is all complemented by a level up system which again both fits beautifully with the other mechanics of the game and slots nicely into the story by having Cal have to meditate to learn them. It eases you in slowly and makes great intuitive sense in a way I really appreciated. I even quite liked the Soulsy combat as I didn't feel it was disrespecting my time, although it did get a little overwhelming and a bit silly towards the end of the game when lots of enemies were pitted against me at once. The bosses also felt fair, fun, and not a huge slog to fight again and again and again. Where the game starts to lose marks for me though, and where we start to move towards the dark side, is the story and the lore exposition. I do feel that overall the story was hard to follow, hard to identify with, and generally a bit of a confusing mess. There were several times where it wasn't clear why I was going in a certain direction, or even why I had just done what I had just done. The game tries to minimize this by providing extra reading, but this is presented in a confusing compendium-type mechanic that made following the events of the narrative close to impossible at times. This is compounded by the fact that if a character is speaking off camera and you pause the game for any reason, they will stop and not continue what they were saying. This caused several important or interesting moments of dialogue to be missed, and really was just annoying to me when it happened. Most games would resume the dialogue when the player resumes the game, and I really can't understand why this game doesn't do that. Just noting it does do that sometimes, but not all the time. It should have done it all the time. The lackluster story is a shame too, because I feel like the characters in this game had a lot of license to be seriously fleshed out interesting and enjoyable. But due to the confused narrative and the by-the-numbers story being told, none of the characters really had much of a chance to shine. The closest any character got to being fleshed out in a satisfying manner was the main character, Cal, and Sia. The captain of the ship, who is such a forgettable character I can't even place his name, is as two-dimensional as they come, with the other characters with great potential, like the one remaining witch sister lady and even Triller, getting little character development outside generally lazy and trop-heavy plot beats. The shame in this really can't be understated. Everything else in this game is fantastic, even the voice actor is stellar, pun intended. The motion capture is amazing, and the facial expressions of the characters in general is excellent. This all unfortunately boils down to an incredibly frustrating story experience, as if the story had been as good as the rest of the game, I would be raving about it for years to come. This therefore means I actually feel like I have to compare this game to Darksiders 2, in that if the story had been given as much love and care as the visuals, sound, environments and set pieces, this could easily have been an instant classic. Instead, we are treated to an amazing looking, solid, and yet ultimately mediocre experience for anyone who considers a coherent story as important as I do. In conclusion, if gameplay and stunning visuals matter more to you than an engaging story, then I would absolutely recommend Fallen Order. But if what you are looking for is an enthralling storyline to sweep you off your feet, I'll maybe recommend you go somewhere else for your entertainment.